Excellent. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to FoodX's first 2021 community event. And we're going to be talking about the microbiome today. We have an excellent panel of founders who are working in this space. And we're going to have a few Q&A kind of questions that I'll ask to lead the discussion. And then we'll save some time at the end for people to ask questions of us. So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. We'll get them, and we'll be sharing those with our panelists. So with that, I'm Peter Bodenheimer. I'm the program director of FoodX, and all you need to know about FoodX is that we are the oldest omni-food accelerator out there, and we work with early stage companies across the food system to help them bring their innovations to market and scale their businesses. And with that, I'm going to introduce our panelists very quickly and then let them tell you a little bit about themselves. So we have Cara Landau, who is the founder and CEO of Uplift Food, a former FoodX company, a portfolio company. And we have the co-founders of Biomics, Carolina Barca and Jonathan Shaman. And so, Cara, why don't you kick us off, just share a little bit about your background, and then we'll jump to Carolina and Jonathan from there.
With pleasure. Hi, everyone. I'm Cara Landau. I'm an Australian registered dietitian. As Peter mentioned, Uplift Food was in a previous cohort at FoodX and part of their SOSV portfolio. And Uplift Food is a prebiotic functional snacking brand. So my background has always been as a registered dietitian in communications and educating people on the importance of prebiotics and gut health and how your gut health can connect to your mental health. So Uplift Food is that vision being brought into a reality of providing products that can help fulfill that need in consumers' diets.
Thanks.
Carolina Barca, and my background is in brand building and strategy, really thinking about storytelling. So I've worked with various CPG giants, including Mars Chocolate, Danone, Unilever, as well as a creative strategy agency. And really, my passion is taking all of that and really thinking about how we ground innovation and storytelling and translate all this microbiome research and technology into real world solutions. And really thinking about how we tell that story in a way that's relevant, relatable, and just digestible, if you will. Biomics is really great, unique in that we are developing performance probiotics that are derived from the microbiome of elite athletes, and really looking at studying optimal health and what drives those who are elite performers, and being able to translate that and provide that to the masses to promote health and wellness for active lifestyles, as well as just general well-being.
Yeah, and I'll just sort of follow up on that. Jonathan Shaman, CEO of Biomics. My background is, I used to be a researcher, PhD in molecular biology. I did my postdoc in biotechnology and sort of like genomics, next-gen sequencing developments. Before that, I was actually an athlete, but not a good one. That's why I became a scientist. Fit Biomics, as Carolina mentioned, really we're trying to create a new frontier of human health and wellness by decoding what super performers have in their gut microbiome, and then translating that into next generation probiotics that benefit not just athletes, but really everyone that wants to be more fit and more healthy from the inside out.
So it's interesting, and this is a great way to start off. You have three people with three very different backgrounds and sets of experiences. So let's start with you, Jonathan, and then we'll go back around in the same way. What drew each of you to this space? I think it's a good indicator of how much opportunity and how broad this space ultimately is going to be. But I'm curious what drew each of you into the space originally.
Yeah, I guess for me personally, and maybe it starts with like the human genome and sort of like the sequence I'm wearing. I've always been into sort of like genetic codes and sort of genotype to phenotype, and how different organisms, basically what encodes for their capabilities. I come from a biomedical background, and most of the time that means working with diseased populations of physiology to see what doesn't work, how can we correct it. I think I'm, lending to pop culture, I'm really excited to see what does work from form, fits, function, and superheroes. Can we learn from that? Can we decode that? And now can we sort of apply those learnings to benefit broader populations and communities? So I come from a very like biotech sort of like pop culture background that we're trying to bridge the gap between those.
Carolina, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think, just having had some experience, understanding a little bit about gut health from Danone, and really just as a marketer, seeing how many companies are actively communicating various benefits. And from a consumer's perspective, how overwhelming it can really be to know what's really going to drive benefits. And for us, what drew me specifically to the work we're doing with FitBiomics is how do we really create and bring true innovation, not just marketing, salesmanship, and claims that aren't substantiated with innovation, but really think about how we bring real world solutions to help people solve some of their challenges and help everyone have access to what's going to help them live their best life. And so when you think about the gut health, as I started to just do more research and understand the impact and influence it has on everything, whether it's from IBS and digestion, which everyone expects and knows about, but really beyond that, just like your mood, your ability to make decisions, your ability to have the energy to get through your day and to be your best self, it really all stems from the gut. And the more I learned about how much research has been done, I am not a scientist, so I was just floored by all the analysis and research that has been done and the power it has to really make a difference for people and be the core of what's going to help promote health and wellness and address a lot of the continued rising of a lot of diseases that we're seeing in our country now. So just being able to address those is exciting and make it accessible.
Yeah. And Cara, obviously I know I've known you the longest here and I know sort of your background, but talk about how coming at it from the angle of diet and nutrition, got you engaged and where now you've seen the opportunities there within.
Yeah, so as a dietitian, I always knew that food, like your food impacts how you feel, obviously, in your health and well-being. But for me, it was really when, it was almost a decade ago now, I was trying to work out how nutrition could support your mental health and how it could appease stress and prevent anxiety and depression. And it was from all my research back then that I actually discovered what is now the science of psychobiotics, which is all that gut-brain connection, which is such a hot topic now, but a decade ago it wasn't. And I seemed a little bit crazy almost trying to, push this message that you need to nourish your gut health to support your mood. And so I think it was from understanding, especially as a dietitian in another life when I worked one-on-one with people and I was trying to help people change dietary patterns to support their well-being. A lot of it was behavior change, and you were actually acting as a counselor because people were stressed or they were depressed, and so food wasn't necessarily just there for fuel, it was there as a mood supporter. And so I felt that by helping get your body on side, get the physiology on side, ultimately then everything else that comes to do with eating well would go hand in hand. And so that's where that passion came from. And because the science just continues to grow, it just strengthens my conviction behind this. And even as an emerging science, I know with full conviction that this is only going to further grow and will become solid science per se in years to come. So my goal has always been to create those healthier products. And so before I started Uplift Food, I acted as a consultant to other food companies, big and small. And I guess similar to what Carolina was saying, I didn't like that it was just marketing messages. I wanted to create products with integrity, because a lot of the time, especially even within my profession, people would push against the food industry and just say the food industry was bad, which I didn't necessarily think was true. I felt that there was opportunities to utilize the value that the food system has. People are buying packaged foods, they are buying supplements. How do we give them truly nourishing, gut healthy foods that they can feel good about and incorporate every day in their life? And so that's really what has driven me into this space and what continues to drive me every day.
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot there to unpack, especially around the science that's happening. And I think one of the challenges that you probably all face to a certain extent, maybe in different ways, is how do you help communicate the efficacy and the science that is being done in a way that consumers can attach themselves to and really feel good about, as opposed to the, well, you know, I heard it on a celebrity doctor's show, and so I'm going to do it, versus somebody who wants to dive a little deeper and understand that. How do you each think about that line and how you communicate your products in a way that resonate with consumers without necessarily overwhelming people with, because there is so much research happening every day?
Yeah, I guess I could go, you know, first. I think, you know, there is a profoundness in simplicity. And I think really just, you know, we have trillions of microbes in and on our body, but I think conveying just more of a notion of just gut health sort of is more representative of holistic health, you know, and sort of what's in your body is greatly affecting how your body functions and things of that nature. So I think really trying to make things concise and, you know, conveyed in a manner, quite frankly, also that's relevant and resonates. And for us, I'm very big on sort of, you know, bridging the gap between cutting edge technology, but also pop culture. Because I think if we could, you know, explain things in a way that's kind of cool and that people genuinely, I think, are receptive to, just like athletics or, you know, sort of influencers or things like that. And basically simple questions like, why is such a person super fit, super healthy? Like, can we understand that? And what is sort of the ramifications of that learnings and knowledge for everyone else? I think so. Explaining things in a manner that's culturally relevant, I think is something that excites us and something that we aim for.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think, you know, there's a growing awareness around gut health. And the more this is becoming part of everyday conversation, whether it's on mainstream podcasts or various just Instagram influencers who are talking about it, that awareness is continuing to grow. There's about an 80% awareness of the benefits of probiotics. Gut health, internet searches have gone up, I think, over 600, 700%. And so we do see that people are curious and they want to know more. And the more this is part of everyday conversation, and we can just have various people talking to communities that connect with them. So if we're talking to athletes, or Kara's talking to people who have stress or mental challenges and emotional challenges, how do we really show them that there are ways that gut health can really address their needs? And I think it's a continual conversation that as a category, we all have to do our job to help educate.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with everything that the other two have said, and for me, when it comes to the niche of gut health and mental health, I do think that mental health is similar to gut health. It's becoming more and more spoken about, and it's more acceptable to speak about it, which is fantastic in itself and a whole nother story for another day. But the point is that, you know, I do think that talking to how nourishing your gut health can ultimately support your mood is something that most people, even if they don't understand it, can jump on with a little bit of you know, a little bit of interest, a little bit of excitement of, wow, is there something that I could take control of to support myself? And it might mean that I can include more foods, or I can do something that's proactive, which ultimately can support your mental health as well, feeling that you're being proactive about your health and wellness. So I think for me, you know, there's a positive in that positioning in terms of interest, but then in terms of developing products, it's really about, I believe, for any company, it's about the integrity that they stand by when they release products. So it's one thing to talk about all these benefits that can come from good gut health. It's another thing to make products that we know lead to butyrate production or bifidogenic effects, or whatever terminology we want to use. And I'm not going to geek out, even though Peter, you gave us permission to do that. I think that as a company, at least if you don't necessarily need to share every bit of detail of your research, particularly as a food company, I think that in the supplement category, there is a deeper level of wanting more data. At least that's been my experience. I feel that in food, taste, branding, marketing, you know, that they're still, it's a food. So I think ultimately that you need to think about the category you're in, but being able to, if someone comes to you and asks you about your positioning, or asks you about your messaging, or asks you about your ingredients, that you can at least stand there with conviction explaining why you've incorporated something, at what levels, etc., I think will do a lot of value for the consumer, for the education, and for the company.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, I giggle a little bit simply because I know over the years we've talked about some of the products that are out there that make claims that have no real backing. And I think that leads into one of the questions I'm really curious about, just because the three of you are so deep into this world, that I'm curious about the kind of misconceptions that you run across and how you manage that. Somebody hears one thing and thinks something, and you guys as experts really do understand more deeply what's happening there. Any interesting stories or anecdotes about misconceptions you see out there and things you want to set the record straight on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I always like to say that we're just scratching the surface, sort of our understanding of like the microbiome and its impacts of like human health and wellness. So, I think for us, we always try to be kind of transparent about that. And like, what drives us is, can we do better than the status quo? And, the notion of probiotics, I think right now, most of them come from, let's say, baby poop or food or cheese or soil and stuff like that. And if you just think of like natural diversity and trillions of microorganisms, what are the chances that what we have on the market right now is the best we could do, right? So I think that's one sort of notion, like, are all probiotics created equal, or like, where do we go from here? And is it a worthwhile endeavor to sort of continue this R&D to look for new functional products and ingredients? But then on the flip side, saying like, yes, maybe in 10 years from now, we want to be in a situation where everyone has their own personalized probiotics and sort of dietary regimen and things like that. And you sort of, get your microbiome sequenced. Okay, that's great, but where do we start? And again, can we start somewhere to build a movement now, even if we know that 10 years later, it's going to be, exponentially better. So we're just scratching the surface. And I think that's something that we try to be transparent about.
Yeah, I think another important misconception is just the limited scope and benefits of probiotics, which, as I said, I think it's changing now. But, typically it was if you took antibiotics or if you had IBS, that was the limited benefit of taking probiotics or prebiotics and fiber and all those benefits when it comes to gut health. I think the consumers are starting to understand, I think it's 47 or 48% of people realize that digestive and gut health really has overall well-being implications. And people are really taking that into account and thinking about how they take control of, and proactively take control of their bodies and their health versus reacting to disease. And again, whether it's gut brain, where that is also something that has prominently helped fuel that awareness and that connection. There's just a lot more education needed to help consumers understand whether it's immunity, whether it's inflammation, whatever those benefits are, energy, sleep, all of those are really connected to your gut health.
Cara, since you focus on prebiotics and we're talking about both pre and post pro, what do you see out there? I mean, I know that there's a lot of noise. How do you kind of cut through it a little bit?
Oh, so lots of questions. I was thinking of the first question, sort of going on from what Carolina said, is that with prebiotics specifically, a lot of people think that if they've got irritable bowel syndrome or IBD, Crohn's, colitis, they need to avoid prebiotics and fibers in general. And there's been so much science that's come out that shows the beneficial effect, not when someone's got a flare up if they've got IBD, but post that you need to re-nourish your gut. You need to get your gut health to be strong again. And prebiotics are an essential piece of that. There are definitely different types of prebiotics, ones that selectively fuel just the good bacteria more so than causing just fermentation that can lead to discomfort, which some other prebiotics may do more so of. But I think that it's important for people that, especially the people that have all these digestive problems, that I think in the past may have thought that probiotics were the only cure, if anything, for them to know the importance of including prebiotics. And so I guess that kind of feeds into the second question, but it's about the type of prebiotic that's going to be most beneficial for the individual based on their concerns. And so, you know, when it comes to Uplift Food and the products that I develop to put out there, I always make sure that there is this diverse blend of prebiotics, including resistant starches, including non-prebiotic fibers as insoluble fibers, so that together they all work together, move the fibers and the prebiotics down through your digestive tract, and you get less of the discomfort that can come from when products just put in one big dump of a huge amount of one soluble fiber and they claim it's a prebiotic, whether it's in the dosage that's required to actually have a prebiotic benefit is left to be questioned, and it can leave people quite uncomfortable. So I think that knowing the importance of diversity, just like we have diverse probiotics in our gut, we need to fuel them with diverse prebiotics, and that has always been something very important to me and the products that I put out there into the world.
Interesting. I'm curious, as things change and there's all of this research that's happening, is there any research that's come out maybe in the last 12 months or that you know is sort of that you're following individually that you're excited about, or any areas of focus within this area that you think are really going to start to pop because of research that's happening?
I mean, for me personally, just the whole microbiome field in general, it seems like every day there's a high impact publication that comes out talking about how a certain set of organisms or bugs or whatever are greatly influencing things such as brain function or just energy metabolism, or how it pertains to overall health, obesity, diabetes, or things of that nature. So, I mean, quite frankly, I don't know if I focus in on one particular function, because I think just the whole field in general is very exciting. And like I said, I think that's also what continues to sort of motivate, you know, me, and I think our company. And just what I said last time, we really are just scratching the surface about the impact of, you know, our gut and our community of microorganisms and how it affects holistic health. So I guess that's a bland answer, but it is true. I think any microbiome research article is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah. I recently read something that talked about just the power of more people incorporating probiotics in their diet and in their supplements actually could lead to a $2.2 million or 2.2 million fewer prescriptions written. And so just really driving that improvement in health and wellness, reducing sick days and increasing productivity. So just from an efficiency perspective, I think people are starting to now realize that there is power for probiotics to have. And, you know, while they don't colonize in your gut and they are transient, it's allowing them to come into your system and do the work that they do to help make sure that you're able to break down the nutrients you need and better absorb what you need and protect the lining of your gut so that you're not suffering from things like Crohn's or leaky gut. And especially for us, you know, we think about athletes and we know that 70% of athletes suffer from digestive distress because of the rigorous pressure that they put their bodies through. And so the fact that probiotics are so integral to really supporting that is connected to even athletes. And so really helping them understand the science that's been published the last couple of years around that has been powerful.
Yeah, from my end, I think it was last year, if not now, based on being early into 2021, just the year before that, there was a really interesting article that went throughout the media from a study that looked at the biodiversity of people's microbiomes that were immigrants, and showed that and how when they had come from places like in Africa, where you have so many more prebiotic ingredient, like natural foods in your diet, that when they came to America and had more of that westernized diet, how the biodiversity completely diminished and how that then went on to negative health effects. And so it shows just how clear it is that it's important to continue to feed the probiotics that you have in your gut, because it's one thing to be born with them and it's one thing to supplement them. But I think being able to keep the probiotics and that diversity that we all naturally have our own makeup alive by consuming the prebiotics, it's just there in black and white science, the importance of it, and also the benefit that we've seen in the science that you can quickly repair some of the damage by consuming prebiotics and letting your body naturally replenish itself. So that was definitely an interesting study that I thought was shared and did get some media attention.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating, and it's really interesting, I think, to think about. We talk about the biodiversity of gut health, but also thinking about diversity of the communities that you serve. So what is again, as sort of experts living and breathing in this world, how are you seeing research done around different communities that have different chronic health problems or different focuses in terms of their health? Is it sort of crossing across the spectrum yet, or is it still feeling like we're in a niche phase that there's very limited people that are interested, and it's not yet sort of jumping to that broader appeal?
I would say I think we're still kind of in a niche phase. I think even just in terms of science and maybe discoveries and R&D and applications, I mean, a lot of it is probably, I would say, probably relegated to sort of like Caucasians or white males or stuff like that. So obviously, I think we need to do a better job of being more inclusive in terms of just research. You mentioned diversity and just looking at different microbiomes, different lifestyles, different communities, and how everyone has their own individual sort of microbial makeup and what that means to their health and functionality. So I think we need to continue to do a better job with that. But part of that, I think, is also just raising awareness, and education, and sort of having things be a little bit more engaging and accessible. And I think, talking with Carolina a lot, right now the notion, and it was mentioned before, the notion of gut health, maybe wasn't something you talk about a lot. Maybe it's thought of, yeah, okay, Jamie Lee Curtis, and sort of like, hey, I have, digestion issues or IBS or IBD. So I think maybe it's not really something people want to engage in. So how can we sort of like change that notion and get people excited about sort of new technology, the microbiome and probiotics, not just as a form of like, okay, I'm bloated, so I need to take it. But no, actually, I want to function better. And I'm interested in learning and understanding what's going on in my biology and how I optimize it. So,
do you see what you're doing with athletes and athletics being one of those sort of doors to open? Because people do look to the superstar athlete that they idolize, and they aspire to be like them. They want to be like Mike, right? And so if that can be a way that opens those doors.
Yeah, I mean, I think also the whole maybe food industry now, whether that's, reducing sugar, increasing fibers, maybe that's more plant-based stuff, maybe it's looking at different sort of like ingredients. I think the industry is something that's positive, is moving towards that and maybe more of a healthier format. And I think you're starting to see even, sort of celebrities or influencers sort of support that. I mean, for me personally, I did my postdoc because of like Marvel and sort of Iron Man and Tony Stark. So I think we all have different inspirations, but it is what it is, right? And I think we should own up to what inspires people, and then just find a way to utilize those popular mediums to promote health and wellness and sort of technology.
We do have a few questions, and I'd love to remind the audience that please post any questions you have. So I'm going to throw a couple of these out here. I'm going to throw the first one out, and it looks like it's from Arpana Chowdhury, and this one is for Jonathan. I would love to hear from Jonathan about planned product portfolio of Fit Biomics and some of the nature of the compositions therein, to the extent that you're comfortable talking about that, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just, for us, again, as we're looking to decode elite phenotypes and super performers, we think about energy metabolism, protein metabolism, neurology, immunology. I think for athletes that equate to things such as like endurance, strength, mental toughness, recovery, and also, just gut health. So our first product that we're developing are actually variations of probiotics that are currently on the market, like lactobacillus. Again, things that are isolated from food or cheese. But for creating a new frontier of human health and wellness and performance, we like to go directly to the source. So we're looking for strain variants of these species that naturally thrive and occur in super performers, cater to their physiology, that we could then purify and provide to fitness-minded consumers. That's our first product for gut health. Our second product, we published a paper in Nature Medicine almost 2 years ago now about a probiotic in ultramarathon runners that eats lactic acid and promotes endurance. So, that is something that's currently in development, and hopefully that'll be our second product. But I mean, again, I think we're just scratching the surface. At the end of the day, we want to have, dozens of these next gen probiotics that could really affect all aspects of human health and wellness.
Excellent. I think this next question is best suited for you, Cara. It's from Hazel, who is a recent psychology grad and is interested in getting into the space around diet and mental health, including gut and microbiome health. Isn't sure where to start. So as somebody who's been sort of leading in this area, where would you recommend somebody who's interested in this as their career path get started?
It's great to hear psychologists interested in this topic. Always been a community that I felt needed to work closely with dietitians. I certainly, if you wanted something at a higher level, I have practitioner resources that I've actually written, which shares a blend between science and practical for consumers and patients. But then in terms of research groups, in Australia, actually, there is a university and a group called the Food and Mood Centre, which does a lot of research on this exact topic, both on, they call it nutrition psychiatry. And so it's really that, it's predominantly to do with gut health and mental health, but really it's all around food and mood and nutrition. And they have a very big study called the SMILES study that got a lot of press quite a few years ago. So I certainly would advocate for people to have a look there.
Excellent. And our next question beyond that, and again, folks, if you've got other questions, please share them along. From Bonnie L, our gut is responsible for so many things, whether it's immunity, synthesizing vitamins, gut brain, et cetera. How do you communicate that in a marketing message to customers? So Carolina, maybe you can start with this one, and I'd love to hear what everyone has to say about it, because it's sort of the crux of this problem of science to consumer behavior.
Yeah, I think honestly, two things John mentioned earlier. The profoundness of simplicity is certainly important. There is a way, I think, really being able to explain the science in a very simple, clear, concise benefit manner. And also having the source of where that message is coming from is going to be important. So whether it's, your dietitian who can help explain it to you, and it's someone you trust to give you a true understanding of what's happening versus it being just marketing speak, if you will. And so it is a combination of really thinking about whether for us, if it's, your trainer who has tried the product and had a positive experience, or dietitians that we'd want to work with to help convey to people how these different probiotics work and what different probiotic benefits have for each person. And just understanding the challenges of, there is an adjustment process. You might need a week or so before when you first start taking a new probiotic for your body to really assimilate to what it's doing to you. So really, I think it's just about having the right people conveying the benefits to people and helping people understand how probiotics have a greater benefit beyond just IBS. And so really thinking about the source of where that information comes from and being able to cite information for more questions. If they have something that they want to dive deeper in, really providing that resource to them.
It sounds like, and I'm curious at others' thoughts, but there's a little bit of that challenge of our culture wanting the pill we can pop that solves the problem versus this being more of an ongoing lifestyle. And knowing that we've tried, at FoodX, when people are submitting products, different products in the pre and probiotic space that have some impact sometimes on your gut immediately. How do you, I'm curious if you've had feedback from people on any of the products you've worked with that, oh, this blew me away and now I'm scared of prebiotics or probiotics and how you deal with that as well.
I'd be happy to chime in there. So for Uplift Food, I mean, one of the main things that I've always been very focused on is how someone feels when they consume the products. And so when it comes to your gut-brain connection, the product isn't gonna elevate your mood within one consumption of it. It's, you know, we're talking about pathways that are anti-inflammatory, that need to reduce inflammation to your brain, and many other things there. So, you know, I talk about that from a more long-term effect, but when it comes to feeling good from consuming the foods, which you need that immediacy in order for someone to come back for more, that comes from positive digestion, from feeling satiated for an extended period of time, from reducing bloating from other foods because their gut lining is getting stronger. And that all comes down to the entire formulation that you develop. And I think that's what sets brands apart, because some people that will just go after a marketing message will just spray one probiotic over something that is otherwise unhealthy, or they'll put in one type of isolated prebiotic fiber that will leave someone in discomfort, and they'll make the call out. But if nothing else to do with the composition of the final product is going to ultimately nourish your gut and be good for your wellness and your energy levels, etc., it's not going to leave a consumer feeling good. So I think it's about that balance, I suppose, of your marketing message for the specific message that you've got as a company, but then also about the entire product making someone feel good as a whole.
Yeah, I think to add to Kara's point, you know, there's an element of compliance, and how do you make this an easy thing that people can put into their lifestyles and their routines? So this way they understand that it's something they need to stick to. And it's not, like you said, you take one pill or you eat one cookie and you feel all better and you're happy and life is great. It's an ongoing process and a journey. And so really educating people on how to make small changes that they can make in their life to simply add in the right, whether it's the right foods, the right supplements, et cetera, small adjustments here and there to add to big change.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add too, you know, because right now, you know, we have like a supplement, so we don't necessarily have any other aspects of ingredients or flavor profiles that, you know, make sort of that consumption experience maybe more palatable or whatnot. But I think for us, how we position this is, you know, it really is like years of cutting edge R&D and technology in a capsule. And I think it's really making that accessible and having folks, you know, more participatory, I can't say the word, participating more in this constant evolution. I think that's what it is, not waiting, right, for like, I don't know, exclusive technology they don't have access to, but this is something for them to try now that could benefit them. And it's part of that process, and inviting them to be a part of that process as it continues to evolve with our, you know, further knowledge and learnings.
So we've got another question here that is going to show that we're not just getting generalists in this session today. So Lucas Bethlehem asks, for you, Jonathan, have you run into formulation problems for specific bacteria strains when it comes to viability in the product after lyophilization? Have you been able to overcome these problems for these strains to reach a high enough cell concentration?
Yeah, I mean, I think...
Good answer, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it sounds like a microbiologist or sort of a molecular biologist, or I don't know, that's asking the question, but I think it is sort of the process of innovation. You know, we're basically looking for next generation probiotics. A lot of them are anaerobic in nature. A lot of them, they're all new to the world. They haven't really been commercialized yet. So yes, it's great to sort of make these discoveries in the lab, right? In a very sort of R&D small scale setting, but then scaling that to industrial level food grade ingredients and materials, that's a whole process. And a lot of times the rate limiting step is what is actually commercial feasible. We've lucked out. I think some of our strains actually have been scaled and now are commercially viable, but you're right. I mean, it's a selection process. So part of this too is, you know, selecting strains that are commercially viable. that can then get out to the masses and things of that nature. So the short answer is yes, but that's part of the process.
Well, and I'm sure, Cara, for you, I know from being along for the ride here that sometimes how the different ingredients that are important to have, you've talked about this diversity of different types of prebiotics, and but how those all work in a food product and the production process that you have to go through and the testing and all the learning that happens there. I imagine, you know, that's the equivalent here. Is it's less about a strain for you and more how do you make these ingredients work well together to ultimately end up with a delicious cookie that people want to eat and is going to support their health long term.
You've almost sort of answered the question in the commentary. I would say that if anything, it's often about for some types of prebiotics, they are not heat stable. And so it's about making sure that they can be incorporated in the doses required to have a positive gut health effect, and that they're going into the section of a product, let's say, that will not destroy them. So just like there's many probiotics that are not heat tolerant, there are prebiotics and resistant starches that are not heat tolerant. And so, you know, when it came to making a cookie as an example, we've got, it's a sandwich cream cookie. So there's some components that go in the cream that's not cooked, and there's some that go into the baked component. And, you know, I think that when people sometimes think about it, they may have thought, oh, it's just because she wanted to create a sandwich cream cookie, but really that there's not, which is a much harder product to make than a wire cut cookie, but you know, a regular cookie. So I would say that there definitely is thought that goes into it in terms of making sure that prebiotics as well as probiotics can remain viable in the final format that is given to the consumer.
Excellent. Well, we're running up on time in just a minute, and I want to give everybody, first of all, thank you to everybody on the panel here, as well as the audience, for joining us today. I'd love to let each of you share any final thoughts on the space, what you're working on next or now, and how people can follow you or get in touch with you or get your products. So, Cara, why don't we start with you?
That was to me.
Yeah, sorry.
So yeah, so Uplift Food, you can find us on all social media channels, and I'm the prebiotic dietitian in case you want to find me personally. Very active on Instagram and LinkedIn, and upliftfood.com is where you will find the products, as well as Amazon, or if you're in the Northeast, you may have started to see them in store, but not yet with the national rollout. Yeah, it's taken a while, but we're getting there. And yeah, we have the Daily Uplifter and the Gut Happy cookies are currently available, but we do have 2 new product ranges in the pipeline that should be being released in the coming months, both prebiotic functional snacks with prebiotics and levels that have been shown to support gut health, both sweet and savory. So I guess stay tuned, very exciting obviously to create a family of products that people that if you don't like cookies and you like something more savory, will be able to offer you benefits. And I guess the important, and in summary from what we've been talking about, the value here is in the diversity. So being able to provide different prebiotics in different formats, so that it's not that if you have the cookies, you then don't eat the other products. It's that you might want to have cookies one day and you might want to have a savory product the next, and you're going to be helping your microbiome by consuming different prebiotics on those different days. So yeah, looking forward to the next chapter of Uplift Food and sharing that all with you as time goes on.
Carolina, Jonathan?
Yeah, I think, you know, FitBiomics, we are available on social media. So Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We do have a fun little YouTube series that we've started and we'll continue to develop with One-on-One with Dr. J, where he interviews some of our athletes. So that's on YouTube. So find us there. We are launching our consumer-facing solution of all the FitBiomics technology and research that we've done, and that'll be coming very soon. We'll be announcing that in the next couple of weeks, with our pre-orders being available, and then our product officially shipping late March, early April. So we're very excited for that. Please stay on the lookout for that, and be sure to follow us on social media so you can get all the latest and greatest with our new website and launch timing announcements.
When you say Dr. J, are we talking about this Dr. J or the Dr. J?
This Dr. J.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of confusion there at some points, but we'll have to work on that. But
you guys have similar levels of athletic or accomplishment and fame, right?
We're working on it. I used to be able to dunk in high school and college, but never from the foul line. So what can you do? Maybe with FitBiomics, we'll get there one day. But
exactly.
Yeah, I'll just wrap up. I mean, I think for me, you know, well, one, I'm excited to try different foods that are actually good for you but taste good. So I'd love to eat sort of cream-filled cookies that I don't have to feel guilty about. Like, I really do love like these, it seems like everything, whether it's our childhood favorite cereals or whatever, or hamburgers, it's like, here's a healthier version of it so you can now consume it. Like, I love that. But I'll just say for me, what excites me is just like, you know, seeing how this evolves. And I think, you know, we're all here trying to do our part, but, you know, it takes a team to achieve the dream. And I think, again, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's not going to be what we thought it was. It's probably going to be better. And I think something that motivates me is, you know, what are the next generation of scientists going to look like? What are the next generations of entrepreneurs going to look like? What are they going to think of? And there's going to be all this crazy stuff that we didn't even imagine, but it's because it's built upon some of the foundational work. And for me personally, I feel like if FitBiomics could play a small role in that, and sort of like, this is the next generation of scientists, and this is what they've brought, because, hey, we're not Tony Stark or we're not LeBron James, but wow, they're doing some cool athlete microbiome stuff. To me, that's exciting. So hopefully we'll get there.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us. And we're going to have to do this again at some point and do a follow-up. But thank you, Jonathan, Carolina, and Cara. This has been great. And look forward to continuing the discussion, and hope everyone goes out and has some of the products.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.